Hello and welcome to Getting Clean on the Prairies. Today I'm going to show you how I make hot process soap. This batch here is my famous Patchouli Orange, which is a favorite with a lot of my friends. I sell it online and in store in Saskatchewan. And I'm just getting ready to put it into the soap cutter to cut it up. But first of all, I will show you how I make hot process soap. And at the end, we will see how it looks after the cut. So in the crock pot, I have my oils heating up right now. This blend is 45% beef tallow, 25% coconut oil, 20% canola oil, and 10% castor oil. So once this gets up to a temperature of close to 220 degrees Fahrenheit, we will mix up the lye solution here. I have pre-measured and ready. This will heat up very quickly to over 200 degrees once the lye hits the water. And we will then add it to the oils and start the cooking process. Over here I have a couple additives that will go into the mixture once the soap is cooked and saponified. This is my super fat, which consists of shea butter and chamomile infused sweet almond oil. And over here we have the goat's milk, which is raw goat's milk that I get from a neighbor, and I just freeze it up. So I am just thawing it out and going to warm it up to room temperature, and we will add in that as well after the cook. A couple other things that will be going into this soap is some kale and clay. I will add that into the oils just before the lye solution. A couple tablespoons of that. And over here I have the essential oils mixed up. I have patchouli, sweet orange, and a little bit of lavender. And then probably at the end we'll sprinkle maybe some calendula petals on the top of the soap. See that? So the lye water is about 210 degrees already. And our oils, about 215, so they're pretty much the same temperature. So we're just going to add the two together now. I just filter it through this mesh sieve just in case there's some chunks of undissolved lye, just to make sure none of that gets in there. So I just keep hand blending it until it becomes a thicker, kind of a pudding type texture, which I have to do for about 2 or 3 minutes here. So you keep doing that till it hits what we call trace, and what that means is if you drip it across the surface here, you'll see some lumps on the top, but it hasn't gotten that thick yet, so we'll keep on blending. See here, it's getting thick now, and as you drag the soap across, it does leave like a little trace of the soap. So that's kind of the stage we want it to be at now. So I'm just going to let it sit and let the cooking process continue. I have my crock pot shut off now, so it's just heating up based on the chemical reaction going on between the lye and the oils. This is called saponification. So it's a chemical reaction between the oils and the lye. And when we are done, and when saponification has completed, that means you have soap, and it's no longer a caustic substance. The lye has turned the oil into a soap, or the two combined have created a soap. So just going to put the lid on it, and we're just going to let it sit here and cook for a little while. You can't really leave it because it may start to volcano and overflow, so you have to keep an eye on it. So we will just let it sit here for a few minutes, and I'll bring you back. So about 5 minutes has passed since I put the lid on it, and I'm still waiting for it to start to heat up a little more. The temperature right now is about 193 degrees. So it's holding its temperature. I've taken it out of the crock pot base just because it's a little easier to deal with. So what I'm looking for here is I will start to see the lid start to steam up because the soap is starting to volcano. So what I'm looking for is it to start cracking and bubbling, and that's when it's time to stir it down. So I'm just going to wait for that, and I will show you how that goes once we hit that point. So I'm starting to see that the surface of this soap is growing and cracking. I'm going to take the lid off here so you can see it happening. So this is what we call volcanoing. And you just have to kind of be ready. Make sure you have your gloves on and some protective wear because it's very, very hot at this point. So I just kind of let it go as far as I can without it overflowing, and then you have to start stirring it down. As you can see, it's very, very hot. And this is what we call the applesauce stage, because that's kind of what it looks like. And at this point, I just have to keep stirring. Sometimes it will separate the oil, and it'll get very oily looking again and not quite ready to become soap. So sometimes you have to take the hand blender and give it another workout with that, which is what I think I'm going to do just to speed this along. And it'll probably start volcanoing again. So you gotta be very careful. So eventually it becomes too thick for the hand blender here, so I get ready for it to volcano again. You can see that some of it is already turning into soap. As you can see, it's starting to volcano again. Sometimes it turns to soap and you're done after one volcano, but sometimes it takes a couple rounds to get it fully saponified. Doesn't look like it's bubbling up anymore, so I'm just going to try and stir it down again. Careful not to splatter yourself because it's still very caustic and can irritate your skin. So now I just have to stir and stir and stir it until it gets a nice waxy, shiny coating to it, and then we will start testing it to see if it's soap and finished saponifying. So this part is very hard on the arms, so I have to switch back and forth all the time. So there's different ways of testing it that I probably should use. You can get kits, pH testers. I use the old-fashioned method, and that is where I just cool off a piece of this and touch it to my tongue. If I get zapped, that means it's still not quite fully saponified, and I need to just keep stirring it some more. So I usually try to make sure I've got it fully stirred and that it's completely turned into soap. Kind of feels like licking a battery or something, and then I just have to rinse my tongue off real quick with water. Don't recommend it if you're not a regular soap maker. So I'm just going to try and stir it all in here. Anything that starts to cool starts to harden fast and turn into soap. So you have to work very fast at this point. Try to stir it all back in. So I just keep a little bit, try to scrape all this in, cover it up so it doesn't cool down too fast. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a little lick. Tastes like soap, so that's a good thing. And then I just usually run it under the water. Give it a little suds test. And looks like we have soap here. So we're ready to add our additives now. Okay, so I'm going to stir in the goat's milk first, just as some of our extra liquid. And the lactate that's in the goat's milk naturally helps harden the soap as well. Sodium lactate. So we'll stir that in real good. Need to work fast here because the soap starts to harden as soon as it cools. One thing about hot process, it's very quick and you don't really have much time to add fancy colors and do fancy swirls. But the benefit of hot process is the soap is usable right away. Whereas with cold process, you have to let it cure for 6 weeks. So now we're going to add in the super fat. I've added a little annatto seed powder to it. That's just a natural orange color that I like to use in this patchouli orange blend, just to give it a bit of an orange tinge. No real benefits to it other than it's just a natural way of coloring without having to use artificial colors. So I just keep scraping the sides to get the soaps that are trying to harden up. Make sure we got it mixed in real well. And then the last additive is the best part, and that is the essential oils. The patchouli, orange, and a little bit of lavender. Can't really smell the lavender, but it helps with the blend. It's always a good base to have in. Some people don't care for the lavender, but I don't think you can actually smell it. So we're just going to get this well incorporated and then get it into the molds as fast as we can. So there we have it. I think it's ready to go. It's always a little awkward trying to pour with this heavy crock pot. I usually get 9 bars of soap out of this loaf, and I think all 9 bars have been spoken for already for my friends. I'm not sure if this will get to the shelves in the store or not. And as you can see, it starts to harden already on the top, so you just kind of have to push it in. It has a nice rustic, rough finish to the top, which is fine with me. Hard to get a smooth surface with the hot process. I have a little bit extra here, so I'm going to throw it into these molds. Again, hot process isn't really the best for individual molds like this, because like you can see, it hardens up very quick. But these bars will be mine in my shower. Doesn't matter what they look like. Okay, so I will scrape out the rest of this after, because I want to still put some few petals on the top for decoration. I usually give it a spritz with rubbing alcohol just to kind of help it adhere a little bit better. These are calendula petals. Just kind of work it in with my hands so it sticks. And try to swirl it a bit. Sometimes I have more time and the soap comes out a little more runnier, but you never know. Every batch is always a different story. So I'm going to put this in the freezer. I call it a freeze-dried method. Leave it in there for 24 hours, and then we will do the cut. So there is the Patchouli Orange goat's milk soap. I'll check in with you tomorrow. So this is my soap cutter here that I use to cut all my blocks of soap. You'll see it has some tight guitar strings here. I like to call this harpo. When it makes a cut, you can, if you listen, you can usually hear it making a nice little sound. So we're just going to line it up here and get it ready for the cut. So you usually can get 900-gram pieces out of a cut, and then there's usually a little spare at the end for myself. So here we go. So there is a little bit inside that still needs to cure. That will lighten up over the next few days. But the soap is pretty much ready to use.